Goldberg train of momentum rode on in March, with talks in the company already anticipating huge sales for Goldberg's first merchandise about to come out in the next month, while on TV his winning streak got into the 60s with him moving into upper card positions near the main event players. Goldberg started the month being placed in the crossover segment when Raw went on the air, drawing a 4.7 rating. March 23 saw him again near the top of the card just before the main event in a quick match against Renegade, doing a 4.2 rating, while his most talked about appearance of the month came on March 30 in Chicago, with him coming out to the United Center to perhaps the biggest reaction on the show in a match against Ray trailer that popped the building throughout, jumping over 1 million viewers to a 4.4 rating. March 98 saw Rock establishing many of the elements and mannerisms that will later turn into iconic features of his character, including the first mention of the People's Elbow name on March 9 during a tag match with Farouk against Blackman and Shamrock to open Raw, with the program with Shamrock heating up 8 days later on a special Tuesday Raw with Rock laying him out with one of the memorable chair shots in history. Rock was part of 2 major peak segments which got Raw 2 rare quarter-hour victories, with the first being on the go-home segment for WrestleMania 14 in the first ever main event against Austin, jumping over 900,000 viewers to a show-high 4.2 rating, while a week later on the day after the pay-per-view, months of build-up culminated in the nation turning on Farouk with Rock's signal to take over the group, as the turn segment drew the joint peak of the show 4.3 rating to beat Nitro's 3.8 opposite. The end of Shawn Michaels' original career run couldn't have come at a more unfortunate timing professionally, as his final month was perhaps his biggest ever in terms of drawing and performance, with the company about to enter the hottest period in its history. Michaels started the month in one of the highest profile segments on Raw to date, with DX opening the hyped Raw on March 2 with Michaels promising to confront Tyson later in the show, as the Michaels-Tyson confrontation ending up with Tyson being revealed as the new member of DX, saw the show jumping to a 4.5 rating, Raw's highest rated opposed segment to date. The following week Michaels was on location cutting a promo that jumped over 300,000 viewers to a 3.7 rating on Austin being just another opponent, as he's not laying down for anybody, closing his run with the final selling promo for the WrestleMania 14 main event on March 23 with another 3.7 rating alongside Tyson, Hunter and Chyna, with the company moving on the following week with Sean Waltman debuting on Raw in a shoot promo on Hogan and Bischoff to join DX. With 3 tiers of established stars, Page continued to climb towards main event opportunities in the middle of the deepest talent roster in history, being involved in a triangle program against Raven and Chris Benoit as the US champion, while getting mainstream exposure with him and Raven shooting an angle on MTV to hype up their pay-per-view match at Uncensored. Page teamed up with Benoit on March 9 in a tag match against Raven and Saturn that gained over 400,000 viewers to a 5.1 rating, while his biggest ever number came on March 23 in one of the highest profile matches of his career to date, with his first shot at the title against Sting, drawing a near-record 5.4 rating. Steve Austin's status was rising by the week, on the way to winning his first title at WrestleMania on March 29, taking things up the level and intensity of the expected Vince McMahon program happening in the middle of the Michaels-Tyson build-up. Austin set several personal ratings records on March, with him arriving almost an hour into the show on March 9 and going straight to the ring calling out McMahon, taking Raw hostage, saying that he was gonna stay for the entire 2 hours of Raw until he comes out, as the Austin-McMahon confrontation ended up jumping around 1 million viewers to a 4.3 rating, Austin's highest ever opposed segment. Austin opened Raw 6 days from the biggest match of his career to date for the final selling promo, with Vince booking him to wrestle on the show in the first ever Austin vs. Rock televised main event. As the match and a sign of things to come gained over 900,000 viewers to a peak 4.2 rating, which beat WCW's 3.9, making it the first time Raw won the main event quarter in almost a year. A week later, in Austin's first show as WWF champion, the Austin-McMahon program officially started with their opening segment drawing a joint peak 4.3 rating. With the Michaels vs. Austin program set to end at WrestleMania with no rematches for the foreseeable future, the company set the stage for the day after the show in the background storyline that was going on in the past 6 months, with Vince McMahon officially becoming one of the most prominent TV performers in the company to kick off the Austin feud. While McMahon proved to be a strong viewership draw since Montreal in November due to the legit curiosity coming out of it, the result coming from March '98 wrote the TV direction going forward, with McMahon's segments with Austin and Michaels doing some of the highest numbers in Raw history. Vince introduced Mike Tyson on March 2 for his second advertised appearance in a confrontation with Shawn Michaels, drawing a record opposed 4.5 rating. A week later, Austin called out McMahon to the ring, challenging him to take the first shot, with the segment picking up around 1 million viewers to another peak 4.3 rating, with Vince kicking off Raw a day after WrestleMania, debuting the new WWF Attitude Belt in a show-long angle with Austin that led to him being arrested to officially start the program with another show-high 4.3 on March 30th. Randy Savage in a tweener role going against top heels Hogan and Bischoff, but still as part of the NWO, opened the first head-to-head segment on the most hyped week in the Monday Night Wars to date on March 2, setting up the main event of Savage and Sting teaming up against Hall and Hogan, with the match doing a show-high 5.3 rating. Savage faced Hogan in a 6-man tag a week later, with the match drawing a record 5.7 rating in the final build to their cage match at Uncensored. The NWO split storyline continued for the rest of the month, with Savage headlining Nitro on March 23 against the returning Roddy Piper, while being involved in a tag match with Nash against Sting and Luger the following week. After months of build-up to the moment, with Nash constantly getting away while also dropping him on his neck in their last pay-per-view match, Giant finally got the upper hand on March 2, with him powerbombing Nash to a huge pop in a segment that jumped over 800,000 viewers to a 5.3 rating. The next 2 weeks saw them against each other, first with them facing off in a 6-man tag and then Giant facing Nash and Hogan in a handicap match drawing a 4.8 on March 23. With the main story in the background on and off screen being the legit heat between Nash and Hall to Hogan and Bischoff that escalated further, with Eric firing Sean Waltman, leading to them turning it into a worked shoot angle with a Hogan and Nash confrontation on March 30 to set up the start of the split to 2 NWO groups led by both, with Nash on the same night working a tag match that jumped around 1 million viewers to a near-peak 4.4 rating with Savage against Sting and Luger. Scott Hall wasn't on the list due to him taking time off mid-month for personal issues, with another one that only appeared on 2 shows due to management dispute and would have been on it otherwise being Ric Flair, with him doing big viewership gains with an average rating into the 5 range the first 2 weeks of March. After another big pay-per-view with Sting at Super Brawl, the Hogan vs. Savage feud that drove record viewership culminated in a cage match at Uncensored, drawing the second biggest pay-per-view in company history. While on TV, Hogan ended March with the joint highest rating average in the industry, with the start of the build to another big money match against Nash. With rumors of the match potentially in the works if Hogan decides to jump back to the WWF. The intrigue in the business was to see the result of Hulk Hogan vs. Mike Tyson head-to-head on TV. While Hogan was outdrawing any segment that Raw put on the night, March 23 saw them going head-to-head at 10 p.m. with Tyson coming out with DX for the final Mania hype, while Hogan worked a handicap match with Nash against Giant at the same time, drawing a 4.8 rating to Raw's 3.7, with both shows jumping around 500,000 viewers. Hogan's other big numbers of the month included a 5.3 for a tag match with Hall against Sting and Savage, a record 5.7 rating for a six-man tag with Hall and Nash, and another peak of the night 4.5 rating in the main event on March 30 against Roddy Piper. Sting continued his world title reign in a series of TV main events that set a new all-time record rating almost on a weekly basis, driven by the in-house NWO problems and him leading WCW as the main opposition. Sting came out to confront Savage on March 2 with him speaking for the first time in 18 months, setting up a tag match built as the first time WCW and NWO team up with Sting and Savage against Hogan and Hall, doing a peak 5.3 rating, while a week later Sting faced off against his uncensored pay-per-view challenger Scott Hall in a record-setting six-man tag, drawing a 5.7. Sting had perhaps his most memorable moment of the month on the unopposed Monday on March 16 with Raw airing on Tuesday, that saw him coming down from an helicopter to the main event of him and Luger against Hogan and Savage that shattered every record in cable TV history with a 6.6 rating, while on March 23 he defended the belt against Dallas Page in a match placed to start just as the WrestleMania Go Home Raw went on the air, with the Sting-Page match picking up big to a 5.4 rating, the highest rated opposed opening segment in history.